The number one thing I want to see against Rutgers is probably the number one thing a lot of you want to see against Rutgers.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin, and thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. It is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks, season expectations, the Big Ten Championship, thoughts on all of that, and a quick glance at Rutgers. I'll get into a deeper dive tomorrow. This episode brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. I want to see Oregon's offense go absolutely bonkers in this game for a number of reasons. Number one, they did not play well last week. Indiana out-schemed them, out-coached them, outplayed them. They were better situationally. That's number one. Reason number two, it would put a lot of us mentally at ease with regards to what this season can still be for the Ducks, which I believe is a lot. And reason number three, when you lose to Indiana at home, and the national narrative, I think, is getting a little blown out of proportion. You know, I heard guys like Joel Klatt talking about how Indiana really took it to Oregon. And Indiana beat Oregon last week. They were the better team on the football field. But I've heard some conversations out there that make it sound like Oregon should have lost the game by 15-20 when they just as easily could have won the football game. So I don't agree with any of that. But national perception affects what Oregon is placing themselves into, which is your ability to get an at-large college football playoff spot. If you come off a home loss and you go play a Rutgers team that has not won a Big Ten conference game yet, struggled with Ohio at home on the field where Oregon will be on Saturday evening local time, late afternoon West Coast time, and my time as well, that's not going to help you out a whole heck of a lot. It's one of those games, because Oregon's a big favorite, around 17.5 points, according to our friends at FanDuel. It's one of those games where if Oregon struggles, their ranking could drop. This happened to Ole Miss recently. They dropped in my top 25 over on Locked On College Football. Why? Washington State came to town, who's not a great football team, and had a chance to beat them in Oxford. Now, Oregon is making a long trip. I still remember, I don't actually recall the number one team Rutgers beat in the 2000s decade, but I know they have pulled upsets in this building before. Anytime you're going all the way across the country, it is hard. Teams that are traveling 3 time zones have consistently struggled. It has not been universal, but it has been more often than not. Indiana, of course, traveled too. They did just fine last week. None of that should matter. Game time, location, time of the year, well, it should not matter. Oregon has way more talent than Rutgers, and the only question, I think that generally speaking, going into a game, if you think about it as, well, are they going to cover the spread or not? I don't think that's the correct way to think about, whether or not a game was successful. In this spot, because of where the number is, yeah, that'll kind of be a barometer for success. Now, if Oregon gets up by 30 points, puts in the second stringers, and then the game, gets a little bit closer, like, context is always required. But Oregon's offense should roll in this game. Rutgers so far this year, and I want to emphasize should. Will Stein taking a lot of flack in the comment section this week, and in people sending me messages like he's not the most popular guy amongst some Oregon fans right now. Iowa in Piscataway scored 38 points. Iowa scored 38 points. Minnesota, the game was in Minneapolis, scored 31, and Washington scored 38. If Oregon does not get to at least 30 points in this game, we will have some questions to answer. Because that's where my standard is for the Ducks in this spot. That's the expectation. Rutgers' defense so far this year has just straight up not been good. On the year, they allow 385 yards per game. And that's factoring in that their first 3 games of the year were against Ohio, Miami of Ohio, and Norfolk State. They surrendered 31 points to the Bobcats, 17 and 10 respectively. So there is no reason that I can see, barring a torrential downpour coming through Piscataway, Oregon should not be able to go into this go into this game and win pretty comfortably. I feel good about the defense coming out of the Indiana game. I've talked about that this week. I think they played well enough to win. I expect them to go play well enough to win the game and do so comfortably in this game against Rutgers. I think a game script with a better offensive start and first half in particular, similar to Northwestern, I'd be totally good with. Oregon led that game 17-0 at the break. Didn't feel like they played their best football. They didn't. They wound up having, a 34-0 lead at one point in that one? 31? Something in that range. If that's how this game goes, I'm totally good with that. But from a personnel standpoint, and when you consider what Oregon just went through, game day's in town, you're at home, and you lose for the first time in about 3 years. You lose the nation's longest home winning streak because Georgia lost theirs not long ago. All of that should light a fire under every single player in that locker room. And I haven't talked about Rutgers a ton this week because this game is just about Oregon. If Oregon plays the way they're capable, Rutgers cannot keep up. Okay, they went on the road last week, and Washington was playing a close game with them at the half in Seattle. It was 13-10. I think Rutgers actually had the lead. And then in the second half, Washington woke up, and Damon Williams went for 500-plus yards of total offense. No, I don't think Dante Moore is doing that this week, but the Oregon offense should have 500-plus yards of total offense in this game. They should get in that sort of range. You should be able to run the ball. You should be able to throw the ball. And coming off of last week, I saw a couple people conversing about this after yesterday's show, or one person in particular, and it did stick with me, and I've had this thought as well. Kenyon Sadiq not getting the football a whole heck of a lot doesn't make a lot of sense and goes against the first line that ever stood out when Will Stein was hired to be Oregon's offensive coordinator. Feed the studs. All right, let's feed them. Now, let's also be fair, which I know can be a very controversial thing for someone in my position to try to do, but I'm going to try. I'm going to do my darndest here. There were opportunities last week to get the ball to guys like Decorian Moore or Kenyon Sadiq or a couple of other guys, and Dante Moore missed them. That's not on Will Stein entirely. The protection issues, something he's got to talk about with Dante and clean that up. We'll see if Rutgers has as complex of a defensive scheme as what Indiana did last week with the number of simulated pressures and blitz packages they brought. Oregon wasn't prepared for that. If Rutgers does that same sort of stuff, Oregon needs to have answers. Fundamentally, though, Kenyon Sadiq and Decorian Moore being quiet, don't love that offensively. No matter what the game script is or how it's going, those guys have to be involved. What was Oregon's best game of the year? Penn State. Was it a perfect offensive game? No. But did they move the ball up and down the field? Yeah, they did. You know who had productive days? Kenyon Sadiq and Decorian Moore. It's not a coincidence. So those two guys, I would love to see have kind of breakout performances, or at least create several explosives in this game. And it's great to see Malik Benson get involved again last week, but those two guys, I feel like right now are not being maximized from a statistical standpoint. I don't think you need to force feed them the ball. It just feels like from a game plan standpoint, you have to look at those two and say, man, how many guys on Rutgers can realistically cover them consistently? If you put them in the open field or create one-on-one matchups, I don't think there are very many. So I'm not that concerned about the defense. I'll talk about that more on tomorrow's show. But for me in this game against the Scarlet Knights on the road, I want to see the offense go off. I think that would put a lot of people's minds back at ease. Like, okay, everything might be okay. You can't completely erase what happened against Indiana with a game against Rutgers, but you can avoid piling on with how you see this Oregon team and what their potential is. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hit me up on Twitter, all of that good stuff. Speaking of long-term outlook, is Oregon just not going to the Big Ten championship game? First, this episode brought to you by Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Do you need parts fast for a project? Do you need a game changer for your business like Kenyon Sadiq and Decorian Moore can be? Well, guess what? Supply House has next day delivery. Talk about a game changer. That's exactly what next day delivery is. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. This episode also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel has got the NFL season, and that's a great marriage. And hey, college football as well, and there's an offer from FanDuel you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. You pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Oregon's a pretty sizable favorite this week. If you think you know how it's going down, hey, FanDuel.com. FanDuel.com. It actually wasn't posted the last time that I saw. I think they're trying to figure out how big a favorite they want Oregon to be, because there was an early line that was set at around 15.5 and then moved out to 17.5, and then FanDuel took it off the board for a little while, and I think they're trying to reassess. A lot of people think Oregon's going to bounce back big in this spot. If you think that that's going to be the case, FanDuel is the place to do it, and for all your college football and NFL betting wants and needs. So, what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Check them out at FanDuel.com. Let's look forward a bit, shall we? One of you asked about the path to the Big Ten championship game. Well, it exists. The tiebreakers get clunky and weird. It's more likely Oregon would make the Big Ten championship game, it seems, with Ohio State losing and then the tiebreakers going in Oregon's favor. That seems more likely than Indiana losing 2 games the rest of the year. Now, I don't anticipate either of those things happening because I'm really impressed with both of those football teams. And let's also remember, I'm really impressed with Indiana because I do think Oregon is a really good team. And I believe Oregon's a playoff team. And Indiana went to Austin and won. That's impressive. They are very impressive. Ohio State, also very impressive. That is a darn good football team, once again, as we know. So is there a path? Yeah, it exists. Ohio State could lose, I don't know. They're not going to lose to Penn State. They could lose to Michigan. Yeah, that's about it. Indiana plays Penn State this year as well. Not going to be like when Oregon played them whatsoever. Man, the Ducks broke that program. It's actually kind of wild. But there are paths to get there. But I got to tell you, after winning it last season, I don't care. If they go, all right, fine. But frankly, I'd rather Oregon go 11-1 or 10-2 and find a way to have a home playoff game. That would probably require 11-1. Ohio State was 10-2 last year, and they hosted a playoff game. Tennessee was 10-2. They went to Ohio State. So, the seeding in different ways that can go. I think we are officially on, out-of-town scoreboard watch from time to time, because currently the only ranked team that Oregon plays the rest of the year is USC. Now, that can change. As we know, things can change pretty dramatically, and we'll see how over time the playoff committee, when they unveil their first rankings, treat Oregon's win at Penn State. It obviously feels a lot different now, but I don't know. I know where I stand on the matter, that I still give Oregon credit for going on the road and beating a team that was ranked inside the top 5 and had all the talent to be that caliber of a team. Will the playoff committee see it that way? Not sure. I think, frankly, Drew Aller getting hurt could work in Oregon's favor from a perception standpoint for that win. But the teams that are most likely to be ranked when Oregon plays them or after, which matters a lot as well, are the last 2 games of the year, USC and Washington. And we could go into that final stretch. If Oregon doesn't stumble again between now and then, you could look at that and there's a world where Oregon needs to go 2-0 to make the playoff. I think in all likelihood, they would probably just need to go 1-1. But USC plays Notre Dame this week. I know this might pain a lot of you to hear. Rooting for USC is a good thing for the Ducks. You'd rather that win just to be safe. 11-1, no matter what, gets Oregon into the playoff. But because of the loss to Indiana, you still have some wiggle room because this is a 12-team playoff, not a 4-team. But you don't have infinite wiggle room. So I'd take every mark in your favor you can get. And USC ending the year 9-3 and having a road win at Notre Dame, yeah, that would help. That would help a whole heck of a lot. So on the Big Ten championship game, though, I do not care. Like even last year, was it exciting? Was it cool? Yes. Was I even 1/10 as excited as I was when the Mariners finally won the division series? No, not even close. Because I knew, like, oh, this is cool. Wow, this is a big time statement to walk into the league, beat Ohio State and Michigan, and then win the Big Ten champ. That's a big statement. I was thinking more about the recruiting impact than the on-field impact, and we saw why that was the case. But it didn't fill me with so much joy and happiness. Like, we all know what Oregon's playing for. So, yeah, I don't care about the Big Ten championship. I really don't. You know, like Oregon basketball last year. Would it have been cool to go on a run in the Big Ten conference tournament and, you know, get a higher seed in the NCAA tournament? Sure, it would have been fun. But when they lost that second game to Michigan State, did I feel like, oh no, they can't account? No, not at all. I thought, okay. That's what this is now. That's what the 12-team playoff has done to college football. And the Oregon fan in me likes that. The college football fan in me does not care for it. So anyway, couple questions here from Who Dat Duck. For the Ducks, who's the most responsible for making adjustments to the play calling or game plan on each side of the ball? Is it the coordinators? Does Lanning dip his toes into both pools? Or are there even influential position coaches that have some pull? And in your opinion, how many times is it acceptable for the initial plan to fail before an adjustment is made, 1 to 2 drives each, etc.? I'll start with the first part. It's much more of, I'm sure every staff is different to some degree. It is much more of a collaborative effort than you probably think. Okay, Drew Merringer, the tight ends coach, and Rashad Samples, the running backs coach, and just keep going up and down the list. Ross Douglas, receivers coach, all of those guys. Okay, they're all talking. You know, we've heard that from the headset communications on Ducks versus them, right? Lanning asked, I think it was on the 4th and 1 play action that they hit to DeCorian Moore against Penn State. I think Lanning actually asked Drew Merringer, like, hey, Drew, do we like the look here? And he said, yeah, we like it. And then they go with the 4th and 1, and it works out. So it is very much a collaborative effort. Lanning definitely dips his toes into both pools. I don't think there's any question about that. You know, depending on how each half has gone, maybe he goes more one way than the other. I don't think every head coach is different. I think that's the best answer that I can give. But I know for certain it is not just one coach or one voice. Like there are a lot of guys. You know, if Oregon's defense has a bad first half, okay, those guys are going to hear from Tosh Lupoi. They're going to hear from Tony Tuioti. They're going to hear from Chris Hampton. They're going to hear from Coach B. Mike. Like all of those guys are going to be voices in that room. It is very collaborative in there. On the second part of your question, how many times is it acceptable for the initial plan to fail before an adjustment is made? If your first 2 offensive drives both stall, like you come out with a game script and a game plan, those are 2 different things. Game plan is, as I talked about yesterday, the big picture of how you want the game to look, certain things you want to try to accomplish or do, run the ball this many times, throw it this many times, hit this number of play action shots, all those sorts of things come together to make a game plan. But your first drive is generally scripted. It's, hey, as long as we stay ahead of the chains, we're calling these plays in this order. You know, like that quick 3-play sequence Oregon had for their only offensive touchdown of the game, that was all scripted. Like they worked on that at practice throughout the week. Hey, we're going to come out and call these 3 plays. It is going to be the end around, it is going to be the quick screen, and then it is going to be the deep shot. And as long as we stay ahead of the chains, we're doing that in order. And that, of course, worked out perfectly. Nothing after that worked consistently on offense. But some of that is Oregon just needs to get out of its own way. I'd say 2 offensive drives, you kind of throw the game plan to the wind and say, okay, let's figure out what works here. I know we came in today wanting to get De'Aaron Hill going, but they're defending the stretch run, so we got to make an adjustment. We can't give him 10 carries and have him finish the day with 10 yards if they're just gonna load up to the edge. But yeah, I'd say 2 is when a coaching staff will go, okay, we want to do this, but we need to now make serious adjustments on the fly. Question 2, just for a fun Fantasyland exercise. If talent was identical across college football and recruiting didn't matter, this is Fantasyland. Here the only differentiator was coaching staff. Where is Oregon ranked, and who would be 1, 2, and 3 in your opinion? Well, let's put them behind Indiana. Let's put them behind Georgia. I think we still have to put them behind Washington with Alabama with Kalen DeBoer, former Washington head coach. Those 3 would be pretty high on the list. I don't think there are many. I still like Oregon's coaches. I still like the staff. I still like the team. I think we're going to get reminded of that this Saturday against Rutgers. They will look like a team that is going to the college football playoff. But those are 3 that come to mind as definitively ahead. I want to say Arizona State, but Marcus Arroyo's down there, and I'm not bullish on. I think he's gotten much better as an offense coordinator. That much is clear. Dillingham has had a positive impact on him. I think he's really good. Dillingham, that is. Ryan Silverfield at Michigan. What is with me today? I'm all over the place. At Memphis, Ryan Silverfield is a really good head coach. Fran Brown at Syracuse, really good head coach. I don't know that I would put them ahead of Lanning. I'm just spitballing on staffs that I think are really, really good. But yeah, 3 that I would definitely have ahead of Oregon. Alabama with Kalen DeBoer, Kirby Smart at Georgia, Cignetti at Indiana. Ryan Day at Ohio State. That staff is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I'd put them ahead of Oregon as well. So Ducks would be inside the top 10, maybe inside the top 5. So hope that answers your question. Another question that I'm going to get to later on the show. First, this episode brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but. From smooth handling to intuitive controls, Mazda has you covered. And they have more IIHS top safety pick awards than anyone else as of August 2025, which is great news any time of year, but especially the time of year we are rapidly approaching. The fall and winter months, they're here. October, November, December, January, it can get rainy, it can get snowy, it can get icy, it can get slick. You want cars that are going to be able to deliver the best safety features. Safety and reliability, as I always say, that's what you want most from a car, and that is what Mazda delivers. Like the players of your favorite team, probably Oregon, or any other sports team you're a fan of out there, Mazda sweats every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Here's a take for Spencer's scale of agreement from a Locked On Ducks insider, or SSA, if you will. The loss to Indiana brings Oregon back to reality, to where 2025 is more of a reload year and 2026 is the year to watch for the title contention, like how we thought at the beginning of the year. This guy listens to me a lot, I can tell. My argument here is that how often they rotate guys, especially with freshmen, shows how much they're trying to develop guys to go for next year. I'm not backing down on my take that Oregon broke Penn State and that was a perception-changing win for me. I really do think Oregon is going to go out this week and remind everybody that they're really good at football and they're a team that can go to the playoff, get hot, and be really dangerous. And something that on our crossover, Zach Seiko made a great point of over the course of the summer and leading up to the game maybe as well was, with how much youth is on this Oregon team, and I hear you on the rotations, they play a lot of different guys out there. I think that's by design, not to punt on this year silently, but because they feel like those guys are good enough and they want to keep everybody fresh. But Seiko pointed out, by the end of the year, this might be a very different Oregon team. I think that is still correct. We're halfway through the regular season. You think Oregon's going to play the way they did against Indiana every game the rest of the year? You think there's going to be no improvement whatsoever? Because I don't believe that. I think by the time USC and Washington come around, Oregon might be playing its best football. The last time Oregon lost a regular season game was that heartbreaker in Seattle. And After that, they came out the next week, played a good Washington State team, or decent Washington State team at home. Didn't get off to a good start, but ultimately really controlled the game, leaned on them in the third quarter. And again, that game would have been different had they made a field goal early on, just think from a momentum and literal point standpoint. But they beat Washington State 38-24. They won at Utah on game day 35-6. They beat Cal 63-19. They beat USC 36-27. Game was not that close. They won at Arizona State, who was bad, 49-13, and they beat 16th ranked Oregon State 31-7. That's what happened in the subsequent 6 games following Oregon's last regular season loss 2 years ago. And this staff is better now than they were back then. I've talked about that a lot, especially in the offseason leading up to this year. So to go back to your take that it brings Oregon back to reality, I'm not there yet. I need to see more to get knocked back down. And by the way, I always expected them to be a playoff team. I picked them to go 11-1 before the year. I thought they'd be 5-1 at this point. I just flipped the losses. And by the way, fun fact, my entire time hosting this show, this is the first time I have ever incorrectly picked the winner of an Oregon game 2 weeks in a row. I've never done that before. This was the first time. So I think they get back on track, rattle off a few wins, and then we gear up for USC and at Washington. And make no mistake about it, those are going to be challenging games. Tough environment in Seattle, good team, really dynamic quarterback. If you thought Fernando Mendoza made some plays with his legs, Damon Williams is a whole different level of being able to run from the quarterback spot. But no, I'm at a 2 on that take that we're back to. Oregon's good, but not natural. Ohio State looks great. Indiana looks great. Miami looks great. I don't think Oregon's incapable of beating Indiana if they played them again. I think Ohio State is the best team in college football. Does anybody think Oregon can't beat Miami? I think Miami's really good, by the way. They are. They are a really good football team. Make no mistake about it. Anybody think Dan Lanning can't beat Mario Cristobal right now? I don't. I'm not in that camp. Those are the 3 best teams in the country. Texas A&M might be in that category as well. Alabama, good. Definitely. Alabama, good. Not what they used to be. I just don't think there's a team that is truly unbeatable. And Oregon, when they play at their best, can go toe-to-toe with those guys. Do I expect them to? No. Am I more optimistic about it now than I was before the year because of Penn State? Absolutely. I said that would shift my perception. It did. It still has. So let's get into a couple more. Coaching carousel. By the way, Tuesday trivia, got that 0 for 2. On the last time Oregon played Indiana, it was 2004, and they lost 30-24 in Eugene. So Indiana has twice been to Autzen Stadium this century, and they scored 30 points and won the game, and Oregon was held in the 20s. So make of that whatever it's worth. But I got the previous trivia right, did not get that one right. Just wanted to throw that out there. Some coaching carousel SSAs. Luke Fickell to Oregon State, James Franklin to Wisconsin. I don't hate either of those moves. I don't think they're likely. But I don't hate either of those moves. So because I don't think they're likely, I have to give this a 4.5 of whether or not they would actually come to fruition. Fickell's going to be fired from Wisconsin within the next few weeks, maybe after the Oregon game. Dan Lanning's already left 3 coaches in his wake this year. James Franklin fired, Trent Bray fired, and Mike Gundy. And Mike Gundy's been fired. So, yeah, speaking of which, another one. SSA, Mike Gundy will not return to college football. He's a little bit older. He's not ancient necessarily. I bet he takes a break at the very least. So, no, I think he'll try to coach again somewhere in some role, kind of like Dana Holgerson did, maybe as an OC. But I'll give that one a 4. Here's an interesting one. And this is more Oregon related. But I love the big picture questions too. Hope you guys do as well. Would Oregon go after Jim Knowles if he leaves Penn State? Now there are 2 different ways I have to think about this. On the one hand, would I, Spencer McLaughlin, want Oregon to hire Jim Knowles as their defensive coordinator? Yes. Yes. Because Jim Knowles has won a national championship. The guy's really good. Really, really good. Forget what's happening at Penn State right now. Yeah, I would take Jim Knowles to be a part of Oregon's defensive staff. So for Spencer's scale of desirability, I'll go a 9. I don't think he is the recruiter that Tosh Lupoi is, and that matters. The other side that I have to think about, would Dan Lanning do this? No, I don't think he ever will. At least not this quickly. I think Lanning, and this is not a bad trait, has shown a fierce amount of loyalty and commitment to the staff that he hires, and he believes in those guys. I do not believe, unless results truly start to sour and the defense is playing well right now, that Lanning would make a change, even if he feels like Jim Knowles is a better defensive coordinator than Tosh Lupoi. I don't think he would do that. I think that is a 1.5 at most for Lanning. But for me, yeah, sure. I'm interested to see what happens with Knowles because he was their big move coaching-wise in the offseason. It's why they should have been so much better. They paid him $3 million. He's the highest paid coordinator in all of college football, and James Franklin isn't there. Does he want to be the head coach? I don't think they should do that. But does he stay on as defensive coordinator? I don't know. But he will get a job somewhere. Somebody will want to hire him. Just keep that name in the back of your mind. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.